Good morning, everyone. It is so good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us for Daily Devotions, the Redeeming Life Fellowship. If we haven't met before, I'm Dan. I'm a teaching pastor here, and we're just excited that we have this opportunity to read God's Word together. And believe it or not, we're finally getting to Revelation, the last book in the New Testament, this wonderful book that has this combination of apocalyptic and prophetic and letter features that make it just such a fascinating book to read. Indeed, that as it unfolds like a drama of cosmic history about that encourages our hearts about God's sovereignty and His work in human history and His plans and His purposes, not just for our lives, but for all of creation. And we're going to see that as we focus on Revelation chapter 5, which yesterday Pastor Jesse showed us how, because God seated at the center of his throne room, that is the object of all worship in his divine throne room, of the elders who are casting down their crowns, and these magnificent creatures with these eyes all over them worshiping him, are bowing down, prostrating, making God the very center of all authority and power and dominion and splendor and glory and love and affection, devotion, worship, all centered on God, as it should be, because he's worthy, because he is the creator. And uh, and this vision that John has of this divine heavenly throne room comes essentially in two pairs, which are chapters 4 and 5. And so today we're going to hopefully try and see how 4 and 5, this part A, part B vision of the heavenly throne room, makes sense together and how it fits in with the rest of the book. Because the picture that John is painting and showing us what it is that he's seeing as he's in the Spirit and lifted up and brought through a door and seeing all of reality through this window of divine revelation and seeing things from God's point of view, that he has something for us to say that we need to or that we need to see, so that we can grasp it and that we can live as the people of God in light of what he sees. And so, yeah, today in our reading plan, we're focusing on chapter 5. And to preface what we're going to talk about in chapter 5, which, mind you, has a lot of things to unpack, but I really want nothing more than today to try and focus on really just one main feature that this chapter, in pairing with chapter 4, it wants us to get. I want you to think about this before we sit down and approach the text. Uh, do you know somebody who is in the perpetual habit of starting projects that they can't finish? Where maybe you go and visit their house or their yard work, where it seems as though at any given time everything is this constant work in progress, where there's this project that started and that project that started and there's this project over here, and almost looks as if the whole thing is falling apart, and you're wondering, my goodness, is this person ever going to finish one of his projects, where everything, it seems, has been started but nothing is ever finished? And there's a little bit of frustration that as you visit their house and you see, it seems as if the house always seems to be in the state of falling apart, that you wonder to yourself, is this the way that it's always going to be? Is this just the way that this person is going to run their house and try and keep things in this perpetual state of unfinished business? And I think we've all known somebody like that. For me, it's not a matter of projects, but always starting books that I never finish. So at any given time, I've got my nose in 10 different books, and I'll be lucky if I finish one of them. And so we all know somebody who's like that. And why we bring that up is that we know, I think, the sense of frustration or disappointment in when we see somebody who has this vision for something that they want to accomplish and to fulfill, but it's like it's in this constant state of repair. And if it's in a constant state of repair, it's like it's always falling back and back and back into a state of disrepair, so that the situation in the end is really never that much better than it was from the beginning. It's just always going to be a fixer-upper. And you hope, if you're working with a fixer-upper, that it finally becomes something that is fixed, that's something that is that is the way that you imagined it when you sought out to fix it and set it right and build it from the beginning. That there's a vision and indeed the will and the power to finish the thing that you started. And I would submit to you that in the big picture, chapters 4 and 5 together are designed to demonstrate to us how it is that God is not only a creator, how he isn't only a person who sets out to fix creation, but that he intends to finish it and bring it to completion to the very end, so that because of what we see from John's point of view into this heavenly throne room, that we have the assurance that God is not only the creator, but that he's the person who consummates his creation, and that when the curtain falls on history and it rises for eternity, that all of that will make sense based upon this vision of what we're seeing in the heavenly throne room of God, and what it is that he's going to intend to accomplish for all of his creation. And so with that in mind, let's jump to Revelation chapter 5, beginning in verse 1. Then I saw in the right hand of him who sat on the throne a scroll with writing on both sides, and sealed with 7 seals. Now let's pause there. The scroll where it was written on both sides has something of an allusion to what may be an allusion to Zechariah, may also be an allusion to Exodus 34, but there's two, I would say, complementary or competing interpretations about the significance of the scroll with both sides. And both of them can work. It could refer to the not just the 10 Commandments, but also the covenant, the written law that Moses received from God on Mount Sinai, that exemplifies all of God's purposes for salvation history and his law and his covenant with the Israelites that he was giving to them when he led them out of Egypt. It's possible that it refers to that. There's another, I think, a little bit more compelling hypothesis that this scroll with writing on both sides refers to what you might call the book of history. To explain this a little bit, you have to know something about scrolls in the ancient times, is that rarely, very rarely, is there ever writing on both sides, because with the writing made typically from papyrus, one side is more suitable for writing than the other. It's much easier to write on the smoother side of a scroll or a parchment than it is on the other side, which is usually rough and not very hard or it's very difficult to write on both sides. But if you ever wanted to write things on both sides, you do so in a way that you have to try and fit everything into a single document. So you're utilizing all the space, all the available space on a scroll to get everything to fit into one thing. And with that in mind, what it seems to be that holding in God's hand is the book of all history. That everything it is that's happened within cosmic history from its creation to this point now, it's like it's summed up and sitting in God's hands, sealed with these seven seals, so that all of God's purposes are bound up within this seven sealed scroll of all of human history that is in the hands of God. So much bigger, indeed, unfathomably bigger than anything the 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 hard drive spaces at a search engine company like Google could ever imagine to store. This is much bigger and comprehensive than even something like that. This is the book of history. And so let's continue. And it says, verse 2, "And I saw a mighty angel proclaiming in a loud voice, 'Who is worthy to break the seals and open the scroll?'" In other words, who is the person who's worthy to break these seals and actually unfold God's purposes for all of humanity? And it says, "But no one in heaven or on earth," that is, no matter how big or how small it is that you get, nobody could open the scroll or even look inside it. "I wept and wept because no one was found who was worthy to open the scroll or look inside." John is weeping because there's no one who's worthy to be the agent of God's action in human history to bring about God's purposes for all of creation. So if no one's worthy to open these scrolls, that means that history has no essential meaning. Our sufferings and our troubles have no essential meaning. There's nothing more to be said about history except that these are just blind physical forces, the strong eating the weak, and living until we die, and then when we die, everything is over. If no one is worthy to open the scrolls, you can sort of swell the resounding lament of the writer of Ecclesiastes that says, "Meaningless, meaningless, everything under the sun is meaningless." And that's why John weeps, and he weeps because no one's worthy to do this. Nobody could have the right to unfold God's purposes for all of human history. And it says, verse 5, "Then one of the elders said to me, 'Do not weep. See, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the Root of David, has triumphed. He is able to open the scroll and its seven seals.'" So God has made a way for his purposes to be made manifest throughout each of the stages of history, of all of human history, as it unfolds and as it will continue to unfold. And this is where in apocalyptic literature, consistent with apocalyptic literature, where there's mixed metaphors and there's this contrast between what John hears and what he sees. So he hears the elder say, "The Lion of the tribe of Judah, the Root of David, has triumphed. He is able to open the scroll and its seven seals." But what he sees, he says, "Then in verse 6, I saw a lamb, looking as if it had been slain, standing in the center of the throne, encircled by the four living creatures and the elders. He had 7 horns and 7 eyes, which is to speak of his omnipotence, his being all-powerful, and his omniscience, him being all-knowing, which are the 7 spirits of God sent out into all the earth. He came and took the scroll from the right hand of him who sat on the throne. And when he had taken it, the 4 living creatures and the 24 elders fell down before the Lamb. Each had a harp, and they were holding golden bowls full of incense, which are the prayers of the saints. And they sang, a new song. You are worthy to take the scroll and to open its seals, because you were slain, and with your blood you purchased men for God from every tribe and language and people and nation. You have made them to be a kingdom and priests to serve our God, and they will reign on the earth. One of the main points that we have to see here, again, that, well, for one, that Jesus is at the center and is the rightful recipient of the worship of the living God, not just from these elders and these creatures who day and night cry, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty." But then everybody is joining in and saying, "Yes, you are worthy to take the scroll and to open its seals, because you were slain, and with your blood you purchased men for God from every tribe and language and people and nation." What we're seeing here is not merely God the Creator, but God who consummates and brings meaning and fulfillment and his purposes towards his creation. That the God who finishes this, or who begins this thing and sustains it, will see to it that he will bring about its purpose, its meaning, its fulfillment till the very end. What's so fascinating about this, to my mind, that still continues to wreck me and just shatter my meager and small brain, is how in this new song that they're singing, is that they say that he is worthy because you were slain, and with your blood you purchased men for God. In other words, what Jesus accomplished on the cross was not a temporary setback towards the achievement of something bigger and better. That it's through the cross, through his sacrifice, that Christ is victorious over sin and death, and that God's purposes can be made manifest in the cosmic scale, which includes your life and my life, Beth, Brienne, Bryce, Faith, Stephen, Glenn, Luke, Jesse, Ellie, everybody, me too, that it's because of what Christ has done that has made it possible that God's purposes for his creation are not just simply these lofty abstract ideals, but that the purposes of God for all of creation are being made manifest through Jesus Christ, and apart from his sacrifice on the cross, they will never be brought to fruition. So that Christ is not only the object of our worship, but he is 100% necessary if God's purposes for redeeming and making whole and new and completing his purposes for creation, they have to be made manifest. They can only be made manifest through Jesus Christ by virtue of his sacrifice, because it's by his sacrifice that he has conquered sin and death and purchased, he's redeemed people from every tribe, tongue, and nation to belong to him. And that apart from that, there is no hope. But because of what Christ has done, we have a living hope that God's purposes will indeed become a reality whenever it is that we respond to this revelation of God in his heavenly throne room, in his glory, in his majesty, in his power, and his sovereignty, that we humbly bow before him in worship. So this is John's vision to us, to demonstrate that the God who started his work has the power and indeed the sovereign will as creator to finish and to make right and to make whole and to make new the thing that he started. And that gives me hope to know that even in a world that I'm looking around and wondering, God, how long can this nonsense and evil, uh, how long is it going to have the day? How long is it going to always seem to have the upper hand over good? But that if what John saw is real, that gives me hope that indeed, because of what Christ has done, that he's going to see to it that the work that he started in your life and in my life and in the world around us, that he's going to bring it to completion to the very end, and that he invites you and I to be a part of that and respond to it today. And I hope that that's what we see in Revelation, and that our hearts respond accordingly to who God is and his desires and his purposes for your life, for mine, and for indeed all of the world that he's made. So thank you so much for taking the time to enjoy, or I hope you enjoy, this daily devotion. I hope you've subscribed by now so that you get daily notifications to follow along with the reading plan. And I pray God would bless you and keep you and sustain you and indeed draw you nearer to his heart as we draw near to God, and he continues to change us from the inside out and fashion us and shape us into his image and likeness. So God bless you, and I look forward to the day that we all get to be together in person again and worship the Lord together. So God bless you. Take care.